Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Monday Musings, Danny SportsWrap. Yes, indeed, the Super Bowl, obviously, a week ago, so now we turn the corner away from football, although I don't know if football ever completely goes away. In fact, I know it doesn't go completely away, but for the next few months, we'll be focusing on other things. Of course, if something happens that involves football, we'll be talking about that too, but you'll just be stuck with me on Mondays, as it were, for my Monday Musings, Danny SportsWrap. And I've always been struck, here we are just a week and a day after the Super Bowl, and I've always been struck about how quickly that goes in the rearview mirror. Really, almost even if the team wins it, now certainly not quite as much. I mean, we had a parade last year, everything else. But even as big a thing in American sports as the Super Bowl is, it does seem to fade away rather quickly, and it seems like the Super Bowl was maybe 3 weeks ago, not just 8 days ago. But we do turn the corner, and certainly we turn the corner while it's ridiculously cold. I mean, this is just a joke. This is the longest stretch of cold weather I can ever remember in the years I've been in the Midwest, and I've been here nonstop basically since the late 90s, and obviously went to school here before that, and spent about a decade or a little bit more than that away, but my goodness, this is horrendous. But I can make you feel, I guess, a few degrees better, because the most horrendous cold I've ever experienced was not in Alaska, where I've been twice. It was cold, don't get me wrong. It was in Brookings, South Dakota. In fact, a whole trip that UMKC took to the Dakotas back a few years back. And we were in Brookings, South Dakota, which is where South Dakota State is, and we did a game in their field house. It's really a kind of a nice field house, but it is, and Daktronics is there, so they have a nice scoreboard and everything else. But you have a situation where it's a modernized, but it's an old field house. So after the game is concluded, people sort of walk out several big doors that just open out onto the outside. And yes, on the way to the game in the bus, we drove by a bank, and the temperature was minus 34 degrees. That was air temperature, not wind chill. Minus 34. So we go in there, and there's a big crowd in there, and it's warm, whatever. But when they go out after the game, I can vividly remember doing a post-game show, and I could see my breath indoors for a basketball game. That's cold. And I always call it blank cold, the word that starts with F, because people say, my wife said it the other day, hey, when it gets below 20, it's kind of all the same. Nope, not when it's minus 34. That's you walk out the door and you go, blank right away. Smacks you in the face like somebody slapping you with a backhand of a pair of gloves. But anyway, we don't have it that bad, but we have it pretty bad, and I'm ready for it to pass. And we got a few days. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Actually, we can sort of maybe feel the heat at the end of the tunnel. But on today, we move on to college basketball, a little bit of golf, Daytona 500, but certainly starting up next with our locals over the weekend, and for a few weekends, that's probably going to be the focus here a lot in college basketball as we work down the stretch. A stretch that's a little bit different, and I'll touch on that coming up next on Monday Musings, Danny SportsWrap, right here.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
I'm here with Joe Spiker, owner of Easton Roofing, and boy, we had to negotiate a million things in 2020, but Easton Roofing navigated them all. As 2021 rolls out, what should we expect this coming storm season?
Well, Danny, it'll be the same thing as it is every year. The storms come, and you've got the guys out knocking on doors, offering quote-unquote free inspections. Be wary as a homeowner. If somebody's knocking on your door, they probably need the work, and if they need the work that bad, they may be willing to do something untoward to get it. So if somebody knocks on your door, says they want to give you a free inspection, just tell them have a great day and give us a call. We'll come out for free and give you a good, honest opinion as to whether or not you need to do anything at all with your roof.
And what's the best way to get in touch with Easton Roofing?
You can always find us online at eastonroofing.com or give us a call at 913-257-5426.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters. Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Visions' goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. It's time to visit once again with Dr. Brad Woodle of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. And Dr. Brad, your group has reached a significant milestone in receiving a prestigious award.
Danny, we've been honored for the 10th year in a row to receive the 5-Star Service Award from Integrity Doctors. And what this means is that all of our offices throughout Kansas City have made sure to give people excellent chiropractic and acupuncture care, be on time, and do a very complete and thorough job, and have great responses back from patients.
I know firsthand because I was just treated, for instance, today by you. You have a wide range of fantastic services.
Absolutely. Chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapies, rehab, anything that you need to keep you well in bones, muscles, joints, and nerves.
And I can't say how much it's benefited me in the time I've coming here. Upwards of 2 years, my back has improved 100%. And you can have that same kind of treatment too. For more information and your chance for a healthier way of life, visit asfca.com/Danny today. I'm here with Tim Emerson, the owner of Emerson & Company. And Tim, give us an idea of the range of services that you provide from Emerson & Company.
At Emerson & Company, we do credit card processing, payroll services. We do bookkeeping, merchant accounts like point-of-sale systems.
What would you say differentiates you from other companies in the field, and what makes you special?
I think what makes us unique is that we're a small local business making regional decisions on companies. We create a profile for the business and then put it out to our different vendors in a very competitive environment and tailor those needs to the specific business, which usually ends up in a great fit or great result for the company.
And, of course, the idea is to save money, right?
Save money, and actually sometimes I'm surprised where actually a solution that may cost a little bit more ultimately does save money, but we're not conditioned to think like that sometimes.
Emerson & Company. Check them out at emerson-co.com or call them at 816-360-9092.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Well, for almost a year now, nothing's really been kind of the same, and certainly that's been the case with sports. And I think that some sports have been affected an incredible amount, and the NFL is probably the one that wasn't the most, even though there certainly were vagaries. They got every game in and all that, and it kind of figures that with the monolith that the NFL is, that they maybe somehow, and of course they had a months of run-up to prepare for it, and that really helped too. But college basketball, to me, really, really has been affected. You watch the games, and it just doesn't quite seem the same. There's either very small crowds or there's no crowd. We see all around the world in various sports that the home court or home field advantage is almost completely mitigated by the fact that fans aren't there. Talked about this in a couple of platforms. Fans would be really proud of themselves, I think, because we are seeing firsthand evidence of how important fans are at all of these venues and with the way the teams are playing and the effect that you can have on the road team, maybe on the referees, all kinds of different things. But let's talk about the college basketball weekend. And certainly this isn't going to be quite the same. And Selection Sunday is a month from yesterday. And so we will be selecting the teams for the NCAA tournament on Saturday, the first reveal of the top 16, the top 4 seeds in each region came out, and the Missouri Tigers were a 4 seed, for instance, and Baylor and Gonzaga, the undefeated teams, were 1s, and everybody else fell in line. And it's sort of just like the college football playoff. They've started this the last couple of years really just as a promotional vehicle. But on the day that Missouri was tabbed a 4 seed, they went out and lost, and it was the first time that they'd lost consecutive games this year. Now, there was no shame in yesterday's loss. Missouri and Arkansas played a really great game, very competitive, a lot of scoring, a lot of excitement. It went to overtime. The Tigers were playing without Jeremiah Tillman. He is out with personal reasons, may not even be back for the next game. They had to change the way they played. They made 13 three-pointers. They shot a pretty good percentage of three-pointers. Their defense has been a little bit problematical of late, and it certainly was in this particular game, as the game ended up being 86-81 in overtime and was into the 70s in regulation play. Missouri did a great job of coming back at the end of regulation as Parker Brown made a couple of big plays. Christian Brown from KU, his brother, and he doesn't usually play that much, but got into the mix because of Tillman's absence and some foul trouble for the other bigs. Made a big block shot, made a big basket at the end. Tigers came from 4 down in the last 50 seconds or so, tied up the game, but it was not to be in overtime. And as I said, mentioned, they fell for the second time in a row, which is the first time this year they have lost consecutive games. It was the 5th time they were trying to come back from a really bad performance. The Tigers have been quite good most of the time this year, but when they have been bad, they have been quite bad. And they certainly were in their previous game against Ole Miss, and they bounced back with what was a good performance, but it wasn't a winning performance. And now the Tigers have 4 very, very winnable games coming down the stretch. However, the first 2 are on the road, and the first 1 may be still without Jeremiah Tillman. So the Tigers are going to be in good shape NCAA tournament-wise. What we'll see is that the seeding is just not going to be quite as important this year. It's just not, because if you're a high seed, usually there's advantages that go with it. You get to play closer to your home area. Your fans can get to that the easier location because of the fact that you were a higher seed. Now, of course, everybody's going to be in Indianapolis, basically, so that's going to be completely mitigated. And what we're going to see is, I think, a more wide-open tournament. I think a tournament that more and more will really be predicated on how you are playing at the time. It's always like that. But if you're playing good ball and you get into the tournament and you're a lower seed and you have to play a high seed right off the bat, you're probably going to do so in a place where far more of the fans are rooting for that particular team. There's a lot of things involved that usually help out the higher seeds that aren't going to be there this time around. And Missouri is in a situation where they just want to get everybody healthy. They want the situation with Tillman to resolve itself, certainly. And they will play these 4 games, all, as I said, very winnable, the first 2 on the road. Kansas, at just the right time, got the gift of 2 straight games against Iowa State, which has not even won one conference game so far this year. It's K-State's only win is the one against them, and KU didn't waste it. In the home game, they just absolutely throttled Iowa State and looked smooth doing it, rolled up a bunch of points, and in the second one, they were able to survive an incredibly rough first half, especially offensively, as they just couldn't throw the ball in the ocean, but they did do what Bill Self loves a lot of times, is to make the other team play bad, or the other team plays bad some themselves, and maybe you force some of it, and maybe you just benefit from them turning the ball over 15 times, which is what Iowa State did. So you're in a tie ball game at halftime, even though you've only scored 24 points and you can't shoot the ball whatsoever. And then they bounced back in the second half, played well, continued to play the good defense, only allowed 50 points, and now Kansas has gotten a little bit of a roll. Their defense overall does seem to be kicking in. They're back in the polls, and they have a stretch now that will continue with one more game against a lesser light. That's K-State on Wednesday, a game that's been moved from Tuesday, and they then play 3 really big ones at the end of the year that will determine, no doubt, whether they can rise up the seedings a little bit. As I said, not as important as it usually is, but they'll play Texas, Texas Tech, and Baylor, and then the Big 12 tournament, and we'll see how that particular tournament lays out as far as fans and everything else. But an interesting stretch for Kansas, and a little reset for them after they dropped 5 games out of 6, and one of the keys to this resurgence and some optimism. First of all, Bryce Thompson returning to the lineup, the reserve guard. He's going to provide a boost, but Jalen Wilson just went through a real drought as a player, had some really dry games and, capped it off with a game that he did almost nothing. And during that stretch, that was right when Kansas lost 5 games out of 6. Now, yesterday, he again got double-figure rebounds. He really seems to be dedicating himself to hitting the boards and started to shoot the ball a little bit better again. And looking at the overarching thing, you can kind of see that when Jalen Wilson has been the surprisingly good player, who looked like an all-conference player at the outset of the season, Kansas has been quite good. And when he has been not as good, they have been a pretty average team. And now some other things are starting to work their way around. David McCormick has had consecutive really strong second halves. Had a little bit of foul trouble in the game on Saturday, but still bounced through that. And Kansas probably seems to have found a rotation now. They really do like Bryce Thompson providing some minutes, and it allows them to rest Marcus Garrett a little bit more. So a lot of things seem to be percolating for Kansas, and they'll get to play Kansas State. Now, Kansas State has played a little bit better. We'll get to that coming up here in a minute. But on Wednesday, that should be a game, once again, that Kansas does not have to really sweat to win. We'll see if that would provide a bump in the road and a little setback if anything bad were to happen in Manhattan. And then, of course, the 3 real tests, as I mentioned, Texas, Texas Tech, and Baylor. And then on to postseason play. And like I said, there's a couple, 4 teams in the country, and maybe basically 2 who stand far and above the rest. Basically, everybody else is in kind of a big pack, and I think a team like Kansas that you might not ordinarily think a lot of, and in a regular year with regular seeding, if they're a 6 or a 7 seed, I think they might have the chance to be a little bit higher because all their losses have come against very good teams. We'll just have to see how that particular thing plays out as far as seeding is concerned. But Kansas, 4 games remaining, and then the Big 12 tournament, and then it's on to Indianapolis. Well, if K-State players want to go to Indianapolis, they can get on a bus or a plane or drive because they're not going to be playing there, that's for sure. As K-State lost a record-setting 12th straight game within a season. Now, their overall record is 14. They need to somehow find a win in their last 3 games or 4 if a certain game is made up, and to not set that record as well. But after a situation where they were getting murdered every single game, they have at least played competitive basketball the last couple of games. The problem is they've been getting way behind even in these 2 games. They got down 17 against the University of Texas, and they got down 20 in the game the other day against Oklahoma State. Now, they ripped off 16 consecutive points, but Oklahoma State really sort of restored order fairly quickly, and it turned out to be another game that really didn't go down the stretch, but if you care about those things, Cats have covered a couple of point spreads in a row. They do seem to be finding a little bit of form from some of their freshmen that maybe then can carry into next year. The thing you have to be concerned about when you're talking about Kansas State is just the fact that whether losing becomes a habit and whether that is something that these players have indoctrinated in them, whether, for instance, maybe they're in this transfer culture, maybe they look around and say, well, geez, we're not very good here. I'm going to go someplace else. I'm a pretty good player, and I think I can do this and I can do that. Now, Nigel Pack, who had a bit of a rough game on Saturday, he seems to be somebody who's real solid for Kansas State, a freshman. Antonio Gordon had a big game the other day. They need to see more signs of that in the handful of games that they have remaining in order to look ahead with some optimism to next year, because there's precious little, and when you're talking about basically moral victories right now, Cats could really use a surprising win. Will it come on Wednesday? Doesn't seem very likely, but that certainly would be something that would ease the strain on Bruce Weber, make the players feel a lot better about all the hard work that they do, and carry something into the offseason. But we'll have to see how the stretch run rolls for the Cats, because it's been rough. It's been rougher than anticipated. It was a bad season last year. This season was not supposed to be a great step forward, but it was a highly thought-of freshman class, and the play was certainly not expected to be this bad, where they were getting rolled on a nightly basis. And I don't think we're going to get to the point where Bruce Weber is in any way in jeopardy, but you lose and you lose and you lose, and certainly that kind of talk comes up. You've seen Gene Taylor, the athletic director, on 2 occasions already have to give the vote of confidence, and I think especially given the circumstances of the year and everything else, Bruce Weber likely will be back next year to try and coach this team. But certainly, if he cares to move on in his career and continue coaching next year would have to be a fairly significant step forward in a league that is a very difficult league to do that in. And Kansas State so badly needs just a little ray of sunshine, and they may not get it before the end of the season, as they may continue to lose and lose and lose. So college basketball probably starting to resonate with some more people now that we're getting closer and closer to tournament time, now that football is over, but still the excitement isn't quite there. It'll be very interesting to see what the NCAA tournament looks like in that bubble format coming up in March. A few more things to talk about coming up. As we mentioned, there's some news in the world of golf, the Daytona 500. Obviously, one of the more unusual things in sports. The biggest event in the sport comes first, and talk a little bit about where racing is at as well, and some other quick news and notes also as we roll out the first edition of Monday Musings-Danny SportsWrap, returning here in 2021, and we hope that by the time Monday Musings morphs into the football season and likely Danny and Stan's football weekend in the fall, that we will be in a far different place as a country and as a sports community as well.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
I'm here with David Schmidt from Private Capital. And David, tell us more about your outstanding firm.
Thanks, Danny. Here at Private Capital, we focus on return on asset. In today's world, it is survival of the fittest. We look at things from all angles and try to figure out what works best for you. The changes we will see this next year on assets will be monumental. The key to success is knowledge. Know where you want to go, and we'll be here along the way. To find out more, give us a call at 816-221-7775.
David Schmidt from Private Capital with the best service for you.
Right now, it's more important than ever to support local businesses. And 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence is open and ready to take care of you. Make 23rd Street Brewery part of your KU game day experience, whether you watch the game there or grab curbside pickup for your tailgates or watch parties.
But not just game days. 23rd Street Brewery is great any day of the week, and when the weather's nice, you can take advantage of their heaters on the patio. 23rd Street Brewery is open daily from 11:30 to 9 for dine-in, carry-out, curbside pickup, and can even help with your catering needs.
So support local and visit a Lawrence favorite, 23rd Street Brewery.
Firsthand, I have enjoyed the benefits of the CBD products from Canaway. My back feels better and better these days, as a major part of my routine are the pain-relieving salve and the Pure Gold oil. And recently, I had the pleasure of a treatment session using the Canaway CBD in conjunction with the Microlight 830 cold laser. The non-invasive treatment session worked wonders, and I could barely tell I was even being touched. TML 830 is the first 3B cold laser to get FDA approval, and in addition, the combination treatment with CBD is patent pending. The new Smart Laser is the only hands-free cold laser in the world and is used by athletic trainers, chiropractors, MDs, physical therapists, and veterinarians everywhere. You can learn more about all the great benefits from the complete line of Canaway CBD products by contacting my friend Sherry McCants at 515-208-6312. That's 515-208-6312 to get outstanding information about Canaway. Most of us have experienced auto accidents, and it's no fun. And even less fun is trying to work on the insurance aspects afterwards and getting full value after an auto accident. I'm here with David Cowan from RecExpert.com. And David, you have an unusual and important niche for people after an auto accident.
We have a passion to teach car wreck clients what they deserve. Getting your car repaired only fixes the damage and the paint. Getting paid for your car's loss in value is called diminished value. Chances are you've never heard of this before because most people aren't looking out for you. We help people collect thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for their car's loss in value after the wreck.
And if somebody wants to come to you for that, what's the original assessment cost them?
We offer a free review of any insurance claim to see how we can help.
You can't beat that. Great expertise and assistance in getting full value after an auto accident from David Cowan. Visit RecExpert.com and learn more. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkScale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Welcome back, and I will use a little phrase that people do in the summertime when it's really hot and in the wintertime when it's really cold, either stay cool or stay warm, and the truth is that it's silly to say it because unless you're in a climate-controlled environment, which has nothing to do with the heat or the cold, then it's impossible to do either. And it certainly is impossible when it's -8 or the wind chill's -20. So I hope you are in a climate-controlled environment right now and cozy and maybe have some nice warm booties on, or maybe you're in front of a fire, although that's probably a weekend thing, not a work week type of thing. But one thing I think about on days like this is the fact that once upon a time, not too long ago, even on a day like this, I'd be out there running. And I did it a million times, not a million, but more than 100, that's for sure. And when I see people running in these conditions, I think, that used to be me. I was crazy, but I didn't feel like I was crazy then. I probably wouldn't feel like I was crazy now if I did it. I often ran in shorts, even in these conditions. But those are the days of the past. I certainly had a nice, vigorous workout this morning, but it was in a climate-controlled environment right down in my basement with the TV in front of me. So that's a lot easier, maybe just about as important as far as physical fitness is concerned, but there was something that made you feel kind of proud and, tough and whatever when you went out in these kind of conditions and got your run in. And if you did that, well, hats off to you, or maybe hat on to you in these cold conditions. Let's do a little golf, and for the second consecutive weekend, Jordan Spieth, who has been at the depths of the game for a long time, had a top 5 finish. But for the second consecutive week, he also had the 54-hole lead in the tournament and did not play particularly well, particularly at the outset of each round, and ended up not winning the tournament. He's talked about the fact that he really only has his B- or B+ game right now. He's going out there and trying to piece things together. His short game is still one of the best there is. He doesn't make as many putts as he once did, but of course that was impossible because he made everything for a long stretch. He has been an athlete who has made me look a little bit wise from the time when he won the 3 majors in a short span of time, and people were talking about whether he could start to stack up the majors, and even people started talking about in terms of getting after Tiger Woods, or at least getting double figures or whatever. He was so young and had won so many majors by that point in time, 3 in a short span of time. And I said he's winning because he's making all these 20 and 30 footers, and that just doesn't happen. A PGA Tour player makes a 20-foot putt at about a rate of 7%, and he was making them at 25%. And I didn't think that was certainly replicable, and it turned out not to be. He doesn't have a particularly good golf swing by classic standards. He's a confidence player. Maybe that confidence is coming back now. I don't ever expect Jordan Spieth to return to the top of the game, but he's giving indications that just that muscle memory of being a good golfer indeed can bring you back. He had the worst score among the top 10 players who finished. And, oh, by the way, Daniel Berger won, who's one of the hottest players on the PGA Tour. Berger's father was a tennis player who reached the top 10 in tennis and was a very good player before knee injuries sidelined his career. Kind of an interesting thing. Both Berger, who's one of the hottest and best American players on the men's side, is the son of a tennis player, and the Korda sisters are among the best American players on the women's side, and their father was a Grand Slam champion in Peter Korda, and he is somebody who has spawned great golfers. So in both the LPGA and the PGA, there's a tennis connection in that regard. It wasn't a particularly great field here at Pebble Beach, but it certainly provided us with the usual beautiful pictures. They didn't have the Pro-Am. They had an event on Wednesday, but because of COVID, that will hopefully return next week. In finishing this golf segment, I really have a conflicted view of Jordan Spieth. I don't root for Jordan Spieth, and it's weird because he's supposed to be one of the nicest people in golf. You can see that. He's thoughtful during interviews. He's courteous. But on the golf course, it's just a hard watch. He's constantly over-talking with his caddy, Michael Greller. They go over and over things. He takes forever to play. He's twitchy. He complains and whines a lot when things don't go his way. It's almost like two different people that you see out there. The golfer part of him is not appealing, so I really don't feel for him when he's struggling, and I don't root for him when he's in contention. But I know that, there are a whole lot of people that maybe I even fancy more and would like to see win more who probably aren't nearly as nice a person as Jordan Spieth. But anyway, maybe he's sort of kind of back, and for a lot of people, that really is something they are rooting for. And this week in Los Angeles at the tournament there, Tiger Woods is the host of the Genesis Open, and he's not playing. Of course, he had surgery a little bit back, but it will be a great field and a real return to a full PGA Tour chock full of all the stars, and that should be a lot of fun as well. You had to be a heck of a race fan to see the conclusion of the Daytona 500. As I mentioned earlier, it is one of the strange things in sports in the fact that the event that opens the NASCAR season is the keystone event on the NASCAR circuit. And the other thing about the Daytona 500 that's interesting is it's a super speedway race, so big wrecks are a big part of the equation. And what that leads to is that sometimes the most curious of people wins the biggest event in the sport. And, in fact, 62-year-old Derek Cope made his final start in the Daytona 500. It was sort of a sponsor exemption type of situation. He hatched what is considered the biggest upset of the Daytona 500 in winning many years ago, and he was in the race. Well, maybe a close second is Michael McDowell, and when I get up this morning and turned on my computer and got ready to do this, I thought to myself, who the hell is Michael McDowell? I'll have to say I didn't even know who he was, and that's probably a little unfair because he's been on the circuit for a while, but he's never won, and he became the 7th driver to win the Daytona 500 in his first try. This Daytona 500 was 20 years, the 20-year anniversary of Dale Earnhardt's accident, which changed the sport so drastically and made it much, much safer. Unfortunately for him, it was not as safe then. And it's one of those kind of experiences where I think you kind of remember where you were when it happened, and I do. I was at the Westport Flea Market having a beer, watching the aftermath of that as the race ensued, and I remember thinking that the wreck didn't really even look that bad, and of course later you would know that he made contact with the wall, an accident that almost assuredly wouldn't take his life these days. Why I was at the Westport Flea Market, I can't really remember. I'm pretty sure I did Royals postgame that day and then maybe just drove around and wanted to catch a beer or was listening to it on the radio and wanted to catch the finish of the race. I don't remember, but maybe you remember where you were when that particular thing happened. I don't know if people will remember where they were when Michael McDowell wins the Daytona 500, but a wreck right in front of him as he was lurking in third place ended up sort of handing him the victory, but that's something that happens in the Daytona 500 as well. This race also featured an oddity in the fact that it had, I mentioned if you had to be up late, there was a 5.5-hour lightning delay, weather delay in this race, and the race Eastern time ended today, basically, and there are several videos out there of drivers in their driving suits going to takeout places, getting a burger or Chinese food or whatever, driving through themselves in a regular car because they knew it was going to be so long until they were going to go racing again. This race also featured Bubba Wallace becoming the first African-American driver to lead a lap. He would end up finishing 17th in the race. In fact, only 11 cars finished the race on the lead lap as the Daytona 500, as I said, kicks off the NASCAR season, its biggest event, and Michael McDowell, a race that he will never forget. It will make him a rich man. He'll always be the Daytona 500 champion, and he probably won't have that much success in racing ensuing. He's 34 years old, but this moment in time is certainly his, and those kind of things are great moments in sports, and one was hatched at the Daytona 500. Good to be back with Monday Musings, Danny SportsWrap, and we'll be here each and every Monday talking about, well, whatever's going on in the world of sports. And by next Monday, it's not supposed to be nearly as cold, and maybe we will just be putting this in the rearview mirror, and soon it will be spring.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.